with so many professionals in every county to understand their economic, political, and social requirement as we move forward. And I'm sure through that interaction, His Excellency the President created or gave us an impression he is the best choice to lead this country. And he did. On 9th of August, it was confirmed by the citizens of this country he is the best man to lead this country. I therefore congratulate him, and I have no doubt in my mind that His Excellency the President will steer this country to greater heights. Mr. Speaker, this speech, I'm sure, was written with commitments. Mr. Speaker, the His Excellency the President started by talking about governance. And I want to thank him because he is one person who has suffered because of a regime that did not honor the governance in this country. Mr. Speaker, His Excellency the President has committed himself to the rule of law. He has committed himself to respect the independence of judiciary and the independence of this parliament. And I thank him for that. Because what we saw in the 12th of the parliament, Mr. Speaker, is the executive putting a string around the legislature. I am saying this, that has come to an end because His Excellency has said he will respect the autonomy of this House, he will respect the authority of this House together with the Senate. And that's very important as we advance governance and democracy in our country. Mr. Speaker, someone has said that the President did not speak about corruption. He captured the element of corruption in his speech. And that's why he argued that we need to support judicially so that they can help fight corruption. We cannot spend the whole day talking about corruption in a speech like this. But he took time to give us summary that if we offer support to the judiciary, then we are very confident that the fight against corruption will be successful. Mr. Speaker, I come from...
What's the point of order? What's the point of order, Honorable Coy?
Honorable Speaker, is it in order for Honorable Didimas Barasa to walk with the naked head, Mr. Speaker? In the last parliament, it had been ruled that he should wear his official hat, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think his hat was stolen by Junaid Mohammed. We have to have a fundraising for him to buy a new one. Mr. Speaker, before that interruption, I was alluding to the fact that the President has given us guarantee to the rule of law. And I'm sure the element of corruption has also been captured in his speech. I come from a very agricultural constituency. And Mr. Speaker, I congratulate you for coming to my constituency during the campaign times. You are the second speaker to come to my constituency. Mr. Speaker, food security is a key aspect in our community. Today, Mr. Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of this House that it has never rained for the last 4 years when the handshake was held between the two brothers. It's like they brought the curse of rain. Mr. Speaker, when the President was giving a speech, that the day it started raining in my constituency. So you can imagine 4 years without rain, and now we have no food. I want to thank the President for ensuring that the theme of his Asila movement, agricultural factor is to increase productivity. And that's why I'm so happy to see the prices of fertilizer being reduced to an affordable rate. However, the fertilizer amount is not enough. And I would like to ask the President to ensure that we increase the volumes, because my constituency alone requires 100,000 metric tons of fertilizer. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the President because he has also committed himself to ensuring that the farming advisory services are extended to our farmers. Mr. Speaker, agriculture cannot be what it is and to reach the level that the President wants to be unless we have water. I want to thank the President because of his effort to bring in and encourage public-private partnership in mobilization of resources for water, because we all need water. This country needs water. And therefore I thank the President for thinking that direction, because we as private investors, if we encourage and join the government, we will have companies coming up to dig dams, to dig boreholes, and that will help in supplementing the input for water in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, I grew up in the insurance sector. That's my business. I kept on saying NHF need to be restructured. And I'm so happy because the President said, yes, it needs to be restructured to the effect that it become an universal health care. Mr. Speaker, I would not like to continue from there, but let me say, the President said this. The tax regime is very discriminative. Indeed it is. And through his administration, I am sure the tax regime will be brought back to where Kenyans can afford, and it should not be discriminative. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, people of Bori. We will continue working together. We will continue enjoying the freedom that has come after the Hustler Nation has become a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mbunge wa Jomvu.
After stopping Lege.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi pia nachukua fursa hii kukupongeza kwa kuchaguliwa kama Spika, na vile vile Mheshimiwa Boss Shulei kama naibu wako. Mheshimiwa Spika, vile vile nachukua fursa hii kuwashukuru sana watu wangu wa Jomvu kwa kunichagua katika bunge hili kwa muhula wa 3. Hii haikuwa kazi rahisi, na kama Mheshimiwa Spika wanavoniita kule mtaani, kijana mwepesi, garang di mabiori, mzee fula ngenge, nataka kuambia kuwa niko hapa kwa nguvu ya Mungu. Nitawahudumikia kama vile nilivyohudumikia vipindi viwili. Vile vile Mheshimiwa Spika, natoa pongezi kubwa sana kwa watu wa Mombasa kwa kumchagua mwenzetu ambaye tulikuwa naye hapa, Mheshimiwa Abdulswamad Sharif Nasir, kwa gavana wa mji wa Mombasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, wakati wa bunge 12 nilimweleza Mheshimiwa Mturi ambaye alikuwa spika wetu, nikasema mimi mjumbe wa Jomvu sikuwa na wazimu kusema Abdulswamad atakuwa gavana. Kwa hivyo na leo juu ya uongozi wako tuwashukuru gavana wa Mombasa ni Mheshimiwa Abdulswamad Sharif Nasir. Vile vile nikija kwa hotuba ya rais, Mheshimiwa Spika, hotuba ya rais ilikuwa mzuri, ilikuwa fupi na haikuwa kuchokesha, na alisema mambo mengi. Moja likiwa ni jambo la CDF. Katika hotuba yake kipengee cha 49 alizungumzia maneno ya CDF, akasema CDF imeweza kuleta mabadiliko makubwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, ninavyofahamu mimi, CDF ina kitengo cha mazingira, kuna kitengo cha basari, kuna kitengo cha michezo, na vile vile tuko na miradi. Lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, hivi sasa wazazi wetu wote katika constituencies zetu zote, wajumbe sote twasumbuliwa kwa shauri ya watoto karo za shule. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni muhimu sana kwenye hili jambo la CDF kuona hata kama twasubiri kulipitisha kikatiba, ni muhimu kama serikali tuangalie kitengo hiki cha basari tutakifanyia namna gani. Kitambo cha kusubiri kipengee ama mambo ya CDF kupita, tuweke kipaumbele mambo ya basari ili tuweze kugawanyiwa katika kila constituency, tuweze kuwapatia watu wetu. La si hivyo, tumeona rais ameondoa maneno ya fuliza kwa Safaricom, lakini tusipochunga tutakuwa na fuliza ya elimu ikiwa hatutaweza kupata hizi pesa kwa haraka. Mheshimiwa Spika, nimeona Mheshimiwa Rais katika kipengee cha 29 ya hotuba yake amezungumzia juu ya mambo ya makaazi ama affordable housing, na vile vile watu kupata haki ya kuona namna gani wataweza kupata makao. Mheshimiwa Spika, hili ni jambo muhimu kwa sababu tukiangalia jambo la hatimiliki ni muhimu kuliangazia, na tumshukuru rais ameweza kuliangalia. Kwa maana hiyo, watu wangu walioko Alidina, Bangladesh, Owino Uhuru, Vikobani na sehemu mbalimbali wataweza, ikiwa serikali itatia maanani mambo haya waliosema, kuona kuwa wameweza kupata hatimiliki za ardhi na hali waweze kujiendeleza na maisha yao. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kipengee cha 48 cha hotuba ya Mheshimiwa Rais amezungumzia juu ya mambo ya janga ama janga la drought ama ukame. Hili ni jambo muhimu, lakini Mheshimiwa Spika, pia tusema mara nyingi serikali ikiangalia jambo hili la ukame katika kuwapatia watu vyakula na usaidizi mwingine, huangalia maeneo kadhaa, na wakatuacha sisi watu wa Mombasa kuonekana kwa tojiweza. Lakini yafaa ieleweke pia, ndani ya mji wa Mombasa kuna watu katika vitongoji ambao hawajaweza kujiweza katika hali nzuri, na ni muhimu serikali ikitangaza majanga kama haya kutaka kuyasaidia pia waangazie katika sehemu hizo. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika kipengee cha 33 Mheshimiwa Rais amezungumzia juu ya mambo ya huduma ya afya. Leo Mheshimiwa Spika, nasema jambo hili ni muhimu liangaliwe, serikali itoe huduma ya afya kwa wote, kwa sababu saizi tukiangalia sisi tuna karibu takribani milioni 910 ya CDF ambao tunapeleka kwa NHIF. Alafu vile vile tunaangalia pesa hizi pia zatumika kwa county. Pia ni muhimu serikali iangalie aidha mambo haya yabaki kwetu ama vile vile yawe yatabaki katika county zetu kuhudumikia watu wetu. Mheshimiwa Spika, Rais amezungumza akasema huduma hii atahakikisha kupatikane pesa ili iweze kulipa madeni. Leo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nimesimama mbele yako hapa, deni moja ambalo mimi mjumbe wa Jomvu niko nalo kwa serikali hii ya Kenya ni kwa watu wangu wa Owino Uhuru ambao serikali ilisema walipwe baada ya ile sumu ambayo ya lead iliweza kuwapata watu hawa. Wakaambiwa walipwe pesa hizi. Katika bunge la 12 tuliyaleta maneno haya Mheshimiwa Spika, ambayo Mheshimiwa Justin Muturi ndiyo aliyekuwa Spika, akatuma hoja hii kwa mwanasheria mkuu ambaye ni Attorney General. Mimi Mheshimiwa Spika, nakusihi katika bunge la 13 litume tena jambo hili kwa Attorney General ambaye ni yule yule Justin Muturi ambaye alikuwa hapo, ili ndio itakuwa rahisi kwake yeye kuwalipa watu wangu wa Jomvu, na hapo ataonekana Fulangenge kweli ameweza kufanya kazi kwa watu wake. Leo Mheshimiwa Spika, tuna matatizo mengi sana ambayo tuko nayo. Nikiangalia katika hali hiyo ya fidia, watu wengi walifutwa kazi katika KPA, na jambo hili Mheshimiwa Gavana wetu wa Mombasa alipokuwa hapa akiwa mjumbe wa Mvita aliweza kulileta na tukaweza kulisupport. Watu wale tungependa serikali ione kuwa wameweza kuwaregesha kujifanyia kazi katika sehemu ile ili waweze kukimu maisha yao. Na vile vile tumpongeza Mheshimiwa Rais kuona kuwa ameweza kurudisha utendakazi wa bandari katika mji wa Mombasa. Hili ni jambo ambalo tulikuwa tukilitamani kwa muda mrefu, na leo tumpongeza kwa kufanya jambo hilo. Lakini vile vile nataka kusema katika miji yote ambayo inaongozwa na iko na port ndani yake, mfano kama Antwerp, kama Long Beach kule Amerika, kama kule South Africa Durban kwenye municipality inayoitwa Ethekwini, hawa watu hupata pesa kutokamana na hizi port. Kwa hivyo na sisi ni hamu yetu tukiwa watu wa Mombasa kuona kuwa maadamu poti hii iko ndani ya Mombasa, tutaweza vile vile kupata kipato katika poti ile ya Mombasa. Lakini la zaidi, nashukuru Mheshimiwa Rais kwa yale ambayo ameweza kuiangazia, na vile vile kukupongeza na kupongeza watu wa Jomvu kwa kutuchagua na wenzangu wote kwa mara ya 3 kuja hapa. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika, na Mwenyezi Mungu atubariki.
Kimani Ichung'wah.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and let me also have my take on the President's speech, Honorable Speaker. And I'll just begin by first congratulating His Excellency the President, as I also take this opportunity to welcome him again to Parliament. I think those of us who were around this lunchtime, we were glad to welcome His Excellency the President as he joined members of Parliament and senators for lunch. And because, as you witnessed during his speech, he says he promises an administration that will be dedicated to the just and fair governance of all Kenyans. When he visits the precincts of Parliament, he does so not just as a former member of Parliament, but also as the head of state and a friend to this House, and clearly showing his very clear intent to work, as he said during his speech and his address to the nation, in a bipartisan manner for the best interests of the people of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, you will see from his speech, other than appreciating the difficult election that was very close that we just came from, and the beauty of our democracy, and how well our democracy is evolving, that for the first time in the last close to 20 years, we've been able to go into an election and emerge from that election without having to lose lives out of post-election or pre-election violence. And Honorable Speaker, Kenyans being able to get back to their places of work and their businesses and continuing with life after voting and having their leaders in place. And I think it's not just something that we commend His Excellency the President and his administration for steering us through. Because I do remember, Mr. Speaker, when we were going through around the country campaigning, His Excellency the President was emphatic that there will be no people throwing stones. There will be no rigging of elections. There will be nobody swearing themselves in. And we shall have a peaceful country after the elections. And I think by God's grace and the gracious people of Kenya, we were able to attain that. And Honorable Speaker, I must commend the people of Kenya that we have set in motion a new trajectory where we go into elections vote in our leaders, and we continue with our lives and expect that those who lose elections accept the results of those elections and move on with life and help those that have won not only to govern but to act in the best interest of Kenya. And that is why even in his address to this House, His Excellency the President was quite clear that he intends to bring legislative agendas to this House that will require a bipartisan approach, because there is nothing in the plan. And when I talk about the plan, I talk about the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza Coalition. There is nothing that we put in that plan that was there by mistake. There is nothing we put in the plan that was in the interest of anybody within the Kenya Kwanza Coalition. But everything in the plan and everything in the manifesto and whatever legislative agenda will come to this House from that manifesto is in the best interest of the people of Kenya. And we are here in the 13th Assembly, Honorable Speaker, as representatives of the people of Kenya. And therefore, I want to ask each and every one of us that whatever legislative agenda that comes here, from the housing agenda that His Excellency the President spoke about here, and if you have listened to His Excellency the President, if you have been watching his actions over the last few days, you can tell that clearly he's very passionate on the housing agenda, he's very passionate, extremely passionate on the universal health coverage agenda, on the social protection and upscaling our savings culture in this country. He spoke very much about that, and more so also on the decriminalization of enterprise and supporting the enterprising young Kenyans and the business community through the Hustler Fund, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I am glad that the President was also very bold. And I remember in his speech, Honorable Speaker, the President was quite dramatic when he said that I have news. Yes, indeed, if I can quote, the President said, I have news, and it is not very good news. Our financial situation is not very good. Honorable Speaker, it is true that this administration has inherited a country whose economy is not working for the interest of Kenyans. We, or the government, the present administration has inherited an economy that was only working for a few people. And the administration has a huge responsibility to make not just the hustler economy, but the economy of the Kenyan people to work for the millions of the Kenyan people rather than work for a few. Honorable Speaker, during the campaign, those of us who campaigned with the Kenya Kwanza Coalition, we spoke at length about state capture. Honorable Speaker, you know, state capture in this country has been so real. And that is what has bedeviled the management of our economy and its affairs. It is state capture that captured our economy. And the economy stopped working for Kenyans and started working for a few people who wielded the instruments of power. Honorable Speaker, it is my prayer, and I am confident that part of the legislative agenda that will be transacted on this floor will be to reverse that state capture of our economy and make our economy work for the millions of Kenyans who voted for each one of us here, and also those who voted for and against the president, because we must act in a manner that we help our people. If not to do anything else, honorable members, to uplift our people from the poverty that millions of our people are living under today. Today, Honorable Speaker, people in close to 14 or 15 of our counties are going without food. There is a drought ravaging our country, Honorable Speaker, and we cannot be able to feed our people if we do not review our budgetary estimates for this year, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I know the President did mention a figure of 300 billion, and it sounded humongous that you could institute budget cuts to the level of 300 billion. But honorable members, I want to convince you and persuade you that it is possible. And you know the padding that is usually done in budgets, especially in the run-up to a general election, Honorable Speaker, you'll be shocked that immediately before, a week before the elections, and a week after the elections, the former regime was still padding the budget and making commitments. By the third week after elections, they had made commitments of close to 300 billion, 200 billion shillings, over and above what had been approved by this House only in June, at the beginning of June of this year. And you wonder, Honorable Speaker, what is this that had to be done outside the budget under Article 223 by those who served us in the National Treasury? That could not be done, and could not be done during the annual estimates, only in April, 4 months ago. And Honorable Speaker, if you go through many of the things that they had committed to, Honorable Speaker, are things that emanate from state capture. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, as His Excellency the President calls on us in this House to help him, because we are the budget-making House, to rationalize our budget for this financial year to make it work for Kenyans. We are not going to rationalize the budget to make it work for sections of Kenya. We will rationalize the budget to make it work for the majority and millions of Kenyans across the board. And that is why His Excellency the President, he said he wants an economy that will work and a government and administration that will serve Kenyans in all constituencies, in all wards, in all counties in the Republic of Kenya. And we have no obligation, Honorable Speaker, other than to support His Excellency the President. Honorable Speaker, I've had members question the President's speech on the talk about corruption. And indeed, the Honorable Fatuma from Migori County said she was disappointed with the President because he did not speak, he did not talk about corruption. I want to tell you, honorable members, President William Ruto does not need to speak about corruption. He needs to act about corruption. And he has started acting. He has ensured that we are resourcing the IG's office. He has given financial independence to our criminal justice system to make sure that we do not just become like the previous regime that talked and spoke about corruption from the first day in office to the last day in office and did nothing about corruption. President...
Your time is up. Member for Westlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me a chance also to speak on this speech of the President. Mr. Speaker, first I would like to thank the people of Westlands for electing me a third time in a row. Mr. Speaker, it was not easy because I had went for the position of the governor. I was out there and then came back, but they still had trust in me. I don't take it for granted. And for the first time, I also won in all the polling stations in Westlands. So that is a no feat. The second, Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate you and the Honorable Gladys Sholay, my chair. She was my chair in my last parliament, for being elected Speaker and Deputy Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to also to speak on this speech of the President. First, the President talked about us amending the standing orders to allow the cabinet secretaries to come to the floor of the House and articulate the government policies and answer questions from members. Mr. Speaker, when the people of Kenya decided to have a new constitution, they wanted to have a pure presidential system. And this, Mr. Speaker, it makes sure that the executive does not belong to this House, Mr. Speaker. So for us, I believe the cabinet secretaries can continue to come and articulate the government policies at the committee stage, but not on the floor of the House, because that, as the Deputy President has coined a word called state capture, it will amount to the executive capturing Parliament. We would like Parliament to operate without any being twisted by or intimidation by the executive coming to be part of this House, Mr. Speaker. We believe that we can do better. The government can still function even without not having cabinet secretaries to come here. This idea was in the BBI, but it was rejected. So I believe it is not yet time for us to allow that because it's not a hybrid. Mr. Speaker, the second thing I want to highlight about the President talking about the CDF. The CDF was the first default fund in this country, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure even you, when you are a member of parliament, you experienced the effect of the CDF. CDF has done much work and has reached the farthest corner of this country and the lowest unit of our economy. Mr. Speaker, the impact is out there and it's known. We have seen what CDF has done. Parents have no problem with children go to school because CDF pays school fees. CDF is the one doing development in schools, infrastructure, and many other things. So those who are hell-bent to kill the CDF, Mr. Speaker, I believe with the support of the President and all of us, Mr. Speaker, it will make sure that the CDF remains alive and it will continue to be there so that we can use it to support our people, Mr. Speaker. And the development in schools and security and many other things that the CDF has done. Mr. Speaker, the President also spoke about the affordable housing. This is one of the things that I wanted to do as a governor of Nairobi, because Nairobi City County is the owner of land, most of the land in Nairobi. And we thought of partnering with the private sector to build affordable housing for our people, the replica of Soweto in South Africa, where we have houses that are affordable and decent and with all amenities available to the people. Mr. Speaker, when the government can come in and continue with this program that was started by President Uhuru, I'm very sure we shall do away with this informal settlement in Nairobi and make Nairobians become homeowners by creating cheap and credit facilities and affordable providing land, and then the developers can now make houses much cheaper and people can use mortgages to purchase houses, Mr. Speaker. And with that, Mr. Speaker, we'll have many people owning homes in Nairobi, because at the moment, 80% of the people who stay in Nairobi don't own homes. Homes are owned by just a few people. Mr. Speaker, I want also to say that as a representative of the people of Nairobi, we know the kind of life that people live in informal settlement in Nairobi. And when we have this kind of arrangement, Mr. Speaker, of having affordable housing, it will bring, Mr. Speaker, decency and dignity to the people who live in those informal settlements, Mr. Speaker, and also ownership of houses. Yes,
point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I raise on a point of order on standing order number 97. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the interest that members have got on this discussion, you realize that the time allocated for each member is 10 minutes. So in 1 hour, we are doing only 6 members. I want to move a motion based on standing order 97-2 to limit the time allowed to each member to at least 6 minutes, so that we can be able to have 10 members speaking in every 1 hour. And therefore, in 1 hour, we'll have 10 members. So in the remaining 4 hours, we can do 40 members. Let me finish. I submit to the Speaker, and then you can contribute to the motion. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm requesting that I move that motion, because that motion doesn't require any a prior notice that we reduce the time allocated for each member to 6 minutes. I submit. Thank you.
I think so far we're doing quite well. What I'll do is I encourage members, if you have made a point that has been clearly understood, you can always surrender a few minutes of your 10 minutes for others.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and also talk about the hustle avant. Mr. Speaker, we already have 3 or more funds existing: the Youth Enterprise Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, WESO Fund. Mr. Speaker, if we can put more resources in these funds, they are more accessible. They have also done so much, and I'm sure with the Hustle Fund, 50 billion that the President is proposing, it can go a long way to improve also on these funds, because we have been using them, Mr. Speaker, to reach out to the smaller business enterprises and others, Mr. Speaker. And also building a credit facility for people who are in small businesses is something that we need to improve, because economies are developed by these small enterprises, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to Mr. Speaker, I also want to speak on the issue of housing, Mr. Speaker, which I've touched on, and hustle fund. I believe that is all that I want to speak on this motion. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Member for Lunga Lunga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now that I subscribe to Christianity, first of all, let me thank God for this chance. Second, Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate you for your election as our Honorable Speaker, together with your deputy. Mr. Speaker, Lunga Lunga is home of your party. And I want to assure you, we are doing well. But still, I want to mention that we have few challenges which I have to put across here, so that as I proceed with the speech of, to talk about the speech of the President, but I have some few issues to mention. One is about the elephants who are terrorizing Wananchi, more so in Moren Ward, and to be precise, a village unit known as Kwanyanje, or Kasemen village unit. We have Ramis Sugar Factory, which has become a menace. It is not paying the outgrowers, and we don't know even where the sugar is being taken to. Teachers are not, and today being a Teachers' Day, I wish to also mention that the teachers in Lunga Lunga constituency are expecting to get hardship allowance, which I want to assure them that through this chance they've given unto me, we will push so that it is available to them. Land grabbing is the song. It has already been mentioned by my colleagues. Water is also very scarce, but still we have this chance to make sure that we address those issues. Second, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to thank the President and also congratulate him at the same time, because, Mr. Speaker, my former boss, Honorable Salim Mvurya, God willing, if this House so wish, he will be the CS for Mining, Blue Economy, and Maritime Authority. And this is a very good gesture for people of Kwale, and specifically Honorable Mvurya, because when he was the governor then, he did a good job in the sector or Department of Education. He has educated so many children to the level of university. Mr. Speaker, going forward, I want to applaud what His Excellency the President said in his speech, paragraph 14. He confirmed to the nation that he's going to actually be just and fair to the people of Kenya. I want to applaud or to actually say that going by that, he assured us that he's going to make sure that the judiciary is well financed. And to that, we actually congratulate, I personally congratulate him. Again, I want to comment on the issue of affordable housing. I personally visited Pangani. The project is amazing. I was imagining if this project was at the Lungalunga town, then even the people themselves could be even happy seeing, not even in, staying in those houses. Mr. Speaker, I want to mention something about the national government CDF. Yes, my colleagues have just said here that parents are calling, requesting for fees, all about the school fees and all that. Surely, students are at home. I would wish to say it here, that I know we are the people to conclude this issue, and I want to request, to urge my colleagues here to expedite the process so that we put this thing into rest and the people of Kenya enjoy, and especially the aspect of school fees. Mr. Speaker, I want to mention here that school, education in Kenya is very expensive. And apart from crying about the national government CDF and bursaries and all that, we need to do something about the cost of education in Kenya. Because today, taking a student to Form 1, it is a nightmare. The requirements are so enormous that even the school fees are even lower than the items required. I don't see the correlation between a uniform and the content which the teachers are teaching. These are some of the issues which we should be looked into. Again, Mr. Speaker, I want to applaud the resumption of port services in Mombasa. This cannot be left without being mentioned, because the economy of Coast Region has now come back to life. I want to also put into records that Coast Region generally has potential to have as many ports as possible. We also have Lamu. We have another port which is also on the way to be established at Shimoni. And I wish to request the concerned parties, and I will follow up myself to make sure that at least the process has been started so that we have the third port in Coast Region for our people to enjoy and have places where they can basically have jobs and also run businesses. Mr. Speaker, the issue of agriculture, this subsidy which has been mentioned, and actually the President has already acted, but I want to mention here that in Lungalunga we have mango farming, which needs to be also considered. And I wish to reiterate here that if we invest in this farming, I want to assure this Honorable House that even the economy of that area will grow, and and also you'll have very sweet mangoes from the other part of the world called Lungalunga. Lungalunga is a constituency with all characteristics. Down there, we have the seashore. Around Zombo Ward, it's agricultural. That's where mangoes are in plenty. But on the other side, where elephants are terrorizing residents, it is semi-arid. And water is a problem. I want to thank His Excellency the President because he asserted that he will do all means possible to make sure that he also avails water to our people. Electricity is another issue which needs to be addressed by this government because we have got so many transformers which are not working, especially in Lunga Lunga. And I believe, as we mention all this, the relevant authorities need to up their game so that we have power to the people. Infrastructure in the size of roads, that is also another issue. We need to thank His Excellency the Deputy President. He has really supported us. 2-3 roads have been done, but still a bigger part of Lunga Lunga needs to be considered for good road network. And we want to assure His Excellency the President that we will present a memo to him if he so wish to ensure that he supports us into this venture. Having no much ado, I wish to thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Women Rep Laikipia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start by congratulating you on your election as the Speaker of this House and to your Deputy, Gladys Sholei. Mr. Speaker, secondly, let me thank the great people of Laikipia County, the people who believed in me and overwhelmingly gave me their votes and allowed me to become their woman representative. Mr. Speaker, it would be unfair for me to just end my story at that, and I think it would be good to mention that my journey with Laikipia County didn't begin with the ballot. The great people of Laikipia County, when I was called to the university many years ago, contributed their hard-earned resources and gave me an education, and that's how come I was able to go to the university. For that, I will remain forever grateful, and I appreciate that they also gave me an opportunity to serve them. Mr. Speaker, being a daughter to retired teachers, it's also important that today I mention Happy Teachers' Day to all the teachers in this country and in the whole world. Now to the President's speech, Mr. Speaker. For me, there were 4 issues that went home for me, and the first issue is in regard to unity. In the morning, I listened to one of my colleagues say that His Excellency the President didn't put a lot of emphasis on unity, and I would want to mention, having read this speech very carefully, it's not once, twice, thrice, but 7 times that His Excellency the President places a rallying call for unity in his speech. The first instance is when he reminds us that the closeness of the election is an indication that what unites us is greater than what divides us. He later on goes to mention that he'll be a hardworking and committed president to every Kenyan in this country. Thirdly, he goes on to mention that his administration will be of service to each and every person, and he also mentions that his will be a just and fair government to everyone. He also mentions that he'll serve every ward, every constituency, and every county in any region of this country. To me, that shows a lot of commitment to serve this country and to serve this country as a whole. Mr. Speaker, I move on to the second point, which went home for me, and that is His Excellency the President requesting this Honorable House to amend the standing orders to allow for cabinet secretaries to actually attend to the House and explain the government policy as well as articulate the government agenda. But most importantly, he mentions that cabinet secretaries will have an opportunity to answer questions from the members of this House. To me, Mr. Speaker, this is the most important thing that would happen in my tenure in this House, because, Mr. Speaker, every 2 a.m. at night, I receive a call from one of my constituents based somewhere in Kamwenje, asking me, Jane, the rustlers are outside my house, they're about to drive away with my cattle. On other occasions, I receive phone calls of members of my constituency telling me they have to sleep under their beds because the rustlers know how to aim their guns at the level of their beds. For me, Mr. Speaker, having a cabinet secretary attend to this house will enable me answer these people and will also ensure that we restore security to our great county of Laikipia. Mr. Speaker, our issues don't end there, and having the cabinet secretaries attend parliament will also enable me to end the human-wildlife conflict in my county. We live in a situation where our people plant, but it is elephants that harvest their produce. That way, Mr. Speaker, I will be able to engage the cabinet secretary and there'll be an end to these problems that my people face. Last week, Mr. Speaker, I received a call from one of my chiefs who informed me that there was a leopard roaming around in the village of Mudengera. Mr. Speaker, I don't know what I'll do with a leopard, but having the cabinet secretary here will enable me ensure full security for my people and safety in all that they do. Mr. Speaker, I also appreciate cabinet secretaries coming to the house because in my county we have villages like Kafiro, Liki, Majengo, Manguo, and Minor Estate, where our people have lived without title deeds. This is a government that is committed to economically empowering our people. I believe when our people receive their title deeds, that will be a way forward for them and they will grow economically. Mr. Speaker, I also talk of infrastructure issues in my county, which I believe a cabinet secretary will be able to answer me because we have had promises over years of a road between Nanyuki to Rumuruti being tarmacked. Mr. Speaker, I believe this is a new dawn for my county and all this is going to happen. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we have had promises of mega dams in my county. We all know we can no longer rely on rain-fed agriculture, and so our people are looking forward to have their mega dam built. Mr. Speaker, I know this is eventually going to happen in this tenure. Allow me to go to my third point, which is affordable credit. Mr. Speaker, it's important to mention that prior to joining the executive, I worked in the private sector. And having been an entrepreneur, I know the three challenges an entrepreneur has are access to information, access to markets, and access to finance. Of course, access to finance is the most difficult of them all, and having His Excellency the President mention that we are now going to have affordable credit through the Hustlers Fund, that is a very welcome gesture, and I know it's going to support most of these small businesses. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I speak on agriculture. I am very glad that the prices of farm inputs have gone down, starting with the fertilizers, and I believe our people will be able to produce better. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, allow me to conclude by borrowing words from His Excellency the President's speech and saying, let us all work together to ensure that every Kenyan is proud to call Kenya their home. And I wish to actively participate in this House on my matters of legislation, representation, and oversight. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Peter Orero Kibra.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Of course, they are saying it is Teachers' Day. I am called Mwalimu Peter Orero Kibra. Now, when you are not here in the morning, I think that seat, maybe it is synonymous with you. Some of my colleagues kept on saying, Madam Speaker, sir. So I hope we'll not continue talking like that. Now, I want to first of all thank the people of Kibra for having confidence in me and electing me overwhelmingly, giving me their votes, and putting their aspirations and trust and faith in me to come to this august house to articulate their issues and also to let those who are here with us know that I represent the biggest slum, not only in this country, but almost in the world. And Mr. Speaker, sir, the powers that you have, overwhelming powers that you have, when you look at our standing orders, those powers and any issue that is not within the Constitution and the standing order, you have the authority to say, I would want you today to declare that Kibra should be a hardship area. that when you give food relief, you also start with Kibra, because I have residents who live not only below $1 a day, but sometimes you find I have residents who cannot afford their meals, not one meal, but all the meals in a day. I know some of my colleagues have not been to slums. One day I will take you to see how slums look like. Some of you have not seen poverty. So I would wish that the Speaker take this very, very seriously. In fact, when I heard His Excellency the President pronounce that he's going to bring a hustler fund, I thought the only constituency he had in mind was Kibra constituency. And that is more reason that I stand here today. That touched my heart, that my people this time will be taken care of. I want to say that in Kibra, it is a slum that even the health facilities that we are talking about, we lack health facilities. Now you know that also if you cannot have 3 meals in a day, it means the immunity level of your body goes down, and within no time that you are susceptible to diseases, and our life are normally shortened. So I want to say that we need to hasten this idea of health care, because it is going to benefit my people more than any other people that we have around. So because of that, I really support the speech of the President, because it talked about the health care. You know, the first time we are speaking, we are told now this is our maiden speech, and I hope that when I heard the President speak, he made one paragraph. I think it is the shortest paragraph in his short speech. I think 37. And he said, Honorable Speaker and members, I have a news, not good news, because this country, our financial status is bad. Now, when you look at this speech, in almost all the paragraphs, we are just talking about the state of the economy in this country. And when I look at our state of the economy, you realize that when the governor, the central bank governor, came to talk to us, one thing he said is that the debts that we have, that we are servicing, is about 8.5 trillion in this country. And he projected that within the next 1 year, one financial year, it might move to 9.2 trillion. But when I looked and I heard the speech of the President, he said that 65% of our revenue still goes to pay for our debt. We must look at mechanisms, structures on how we are going to lower our debts. And when we see that we are going to offer 300 billion as a cut, I want to concur with one of our members who spoke here that the first priority we give to, we look at each department in our government and see how many, or how much was not spent in these departments. That is called the absorption. Which department did not absorb? Looking at all the departments, I have realized in the governments that the absorption rate, sometimes you find that some government departments only absorb up to 60%. So instead of having budget cuts across the board, we go by looking at the absorption rate of these departments, and from there we can raise the 300 billion. Now, we also realize that our expenditure recurrent is more than what our revenue. And we are told that maybe within the next 3 years, we will be able to have more revenue than the recurrent expenditure. Now, this requires a lot of strict measures, and I will urge those concerned, the technocrats, to take this very, very seriously. Now, I would wish to talk about education. I'm an educationist, and that is why I'm called Mwalimu. And now, the speech of the President should have put a lot of emphasis on education. Education is what equalizes the people, whether you are poor or whether you are rich. Now, the education system in our country is at a balance. I have seen that we have a committee. I don't think it is a task force. It is a committee that will look at reforms required in education. I believe that these reforms will not affect the real stakeholders in the education system. The major stakeholders are the teachers, the parents, and the students. Most of the parents have been talking about a burden in this CBC. However, when you talk to the parents very keenly, the only thing that they are complaining about is they are given also homework to help their students. And that is the only thing the parents are talking about, apart from also that it is expensive. So I would rather ask those who have been charged with this duty of looking at the reforms required in education to consult widely, especially with the Health Association and these major stakeholders, to see that if we bring these reforms, it will not take us less than 20 years again that we need another education system. I also urge the members of the parliament that when we need such of these reforms, they must be brought into this house so that we debate about those reforms properly before we enact them into laws. When the president talked about the Hustler Fund, I went and looked at the various funds that we already have. And today I saw the member of parliament of Matungulu, I think Mr. Mutinda, has already brought a bill, and I think he has written to the speaker, to look at some of these funds so that we ground them in law. I have seen that he has written about the national government, CDF, Constituency Development Fund. Then I have also seen that he has put the NGAF for women. He has also put the Wezo Fund, the Youth Development Fund, and then the Hustler Fund. I think the Hustler Fund should not be merged with the Wezo Fund. This Wezo Fund has been used, especially in the slum areas. This is what has helped the people to start their small and small businesses. The Hustler Fund should be treated on its own entity because we are pumping around 50 billion. When we spread this to all the constituencies, I think it is going to give a big impact, especially to the young and small entrepreneurs. So I would say that when we look at the legislation and at this bill, let us not combine the Wezo Fund, the Youth Fund, the NGAF, and the Hustler Fund. Let them be treated differently so that we have more avenues for our young businessmen so that they can grow with this fund. I would also want to look at the separation of...
Time is up. The member for Turkana North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, I want to thank the people of Turkana North for giving me a chance to represent them in the 13th Parliament. Most of you might not know where exactly Turkana North is. Turkana North borders two international borders. That is Ethiopia and South Sudan. And the community in Turkana North is purely pastoralist community. So when you hear about drought, the long dry spells, most of the people in Turkana North are affected because of the pastoral arrangement. Now, Turkana North people placed their hopes and aspirations on me, having worked with them before in the previous assignments, and they believe I am able to represent them and ensure that their hopes and aspirations are taken care of. Now, going to the President's speech, I want to pick out a few things that concern people of Turkana North and Turkana in general. The government needs to put in place and take into consideration the mainstay of the Turkana people. And their mainstay is in the pastoral economy. Looking at the speech and what has always happened, we have a lot of initiatives that look into strengthening pastoral economy. But the problem has been implementation. A lot of strategic papers have collected dust in government offices. But this time around, we want to urge the government to look into the pastoral economy, because we do not want to always make noise on the drought situations, provision of relief food to our people, because in essence, if the government takes interest into what we are calling the pastoral economy, the people of Turkana and northern Kenya in general will have drought and relief food provision as a thing of the past. Now, one thing I really want to bring out in terms of interventions on the pastoral economy. We realize we have KMC in Nairobi, which is way far away from northern Kenya, where pastoralism is practiced. What the governments, subsequent governments have been doing and expecting is pastoralists who have engaged in business. And I want the honorable members, Mr. Speaker, to know that our people have begun engaging in business with their livestock. It is not as it used to be. And we want, going forward, we want abattoirs to be established in each of these pastoral counties, so that our people don't have to move their livestock, their cows, goats, all the way from, say, Lokitang, or Todonyang, or Kibish, all the way to Nairobi, where there is a KMC. So government should be proactive and look into the needs of our pastoral communities. There is also need to engage in climate change initiatives. That is presently what is discussed all over the world. And we all know what is causing the droughts, the long dry spells, especially in those areas, is the climate change that is affecting our rain periods. So the government should take this into consideration, because when I was watching the President give his speech in the UN General Assembly, he mentioned that Kenya will be proactive on interventions on climate change. So this we will look into. We will continue reminding the government that northern Kenya and Turkana in particular will look forward to these initiatives. Now, the other thing that I want to bring out in the President's speech is there is no mention of insecurity in our county. When the president was sworn in, after a few days in office, you realize there was an attack in Turkana East and it was happening within the boundaries of Kenya. A number of police officers were killed, including civilians. This issue of insecurity should be taken seriously because we know for a long time operations, security operations have been undertaken in these areas, but the results have been the same. So there is need, and I thank the Deputy President because he was able to meet us and engage, but we want results. That was a meeting, a boardroom meeting. We agreed on a number of issues. We are yet to see what happens from what comes out from that operation. You know very well we cannot have development. The areas under attack are grasslands. And so, in essence, this has contributed to the loss of livelihood and mainstay of this community. So even within the borders, even within the country, the government should be proactive to bring this thing to an end. And I don't say it's only happening in Turkana, but it is happening in areas within Kerio Valley. And there is hue and cry over this insecurity situation in these areas. The government should come out very strongly in taking care of this. Lastly, so that I can also donate my time to my colleagues who are first-timers. In the international border where my constituency is placed, this is a community that has protected this country for a long time. And we will continue to engage the government on this so that we can have NPRs. The intervention on NPRs has paid off. These are, we are bordering hostile communities from the other side. Like in Ethiopia, we are bordering Merile, Dasnach, very hostile to our community. We are also bordering Nyangatom in Ethiopia, very hostile to our community. And you realize there is little presence of government in these areas. And the only thing we can do is to protect ourselves. And in protecting ourselves, we want to do it in a way that is not illegal. We want the government to strengthen the NPR initiative so that our
Thank you, Honorable Member. Nyaribari Church MP.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. My name is Zahir Janda, Member of Parliament, Nyaribari Chache constituency. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate you for being elected together with your able deputy, the Honorable Madam Boss Sholei. Mr. Speaker, it is also my singular honor to thank the people of Nyaribari Chache who gave me this opportunity to lead It is also my singular honor to thank the people of Nyaribari Chache constituency, the people who voted for me. It has never happened in the history of Kisii since independence, where I got the highest number of votes in my constituency since independence. Mr. Speaker, I want to touch on the President's speech. I will make it very short. I want to support the President's speech because he talked about having fruitful discussions with the operators of Fuliza and Mshwari to reduce the cost of credit by about 40%. He also promised his administration will allocate 50 billion shillings every year to the Hustlers Fund so that the micro, small, medium, and micro, small, and medium enterprises can access the credit and leverage on them. Mr. Speaker, the issue of low-cost housing is a very good initiative because in my place, the Kisii County, we have issues of land. But this will not lock us out to be beneficiaries of the low-cost housing because whenever they are building up the houses are being built with going upwards. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to remind my fellow Kenyans, especially from Nyanza, where I come from, that the presidency is a symbol of national unity. The presidency should be respected. We came from an electioneering period. The election is behind us. We have to come together as a country and support the government. But I am not happy with my people, especially in Nyanza, where His Excellency President William Ruto was there last week. The leadership of Nyanza refused to attend deliberately for political reasons, but it is very sad, uncouth and barbaric to have such leaders do that. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I also want to encourage other leaders to work with the current government. We have a government that was elected, and they should not discriminate because these leaders, they have a salary, they are earning money, but their people are going to suffer. That is not correct. We will not agree, and we want to encourage fellow leaders to support our Kenya Kwanza government. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, the people of Kisii County, especially Nyaribari Chache, where I come from, they have entrusted me and looking forward for me to be able to legislate the agenda and the promise that I made to them in this 5 years. Mr. Speaker, that is it. Thank you so much, and I wish to donate my time probably to my brother Muhammad Ali, who is next to me.
You can surrender your time, but you cannot choose the next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
For Manyata.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to say thank you for this opportunity to give my maiden speech. And first, I want to start by thanking God and the people of Manyata constituency for giving me this opportunity to share with my fellow members of Parliament, as the President called it, a premium platform of the chosen few, and I'm privileged to be one of them. I want to tell the people of Manyata that I'll try my best to represent them fully and ensure that their voice is heard. I also want to join my brother from Mumias East to request that we, the newcomers, be given a very good share of the time in this house so that we can air our views and those of our constituents. I also want to say that I'm looking forward to working with my fellow members to solve and at least have our jobless youth getting an opportunity to work and be able to continue with their lives. He spoke of Hustlers Fund, and he said that he will be able to give 50 billion at first so that the Hustler Fund can help our young people. I hope that this money will be able to be given good legislation by this House so that it gets to the right hands. We have had issues where funds, some of them being mentioned by my fellow members here, don't get to the right hands, and they don't make an impact to the right people. I'm looking forward to being part of that team. The issue of procurement of government equipment and tenders, we had a good role that can help solve the issue of joblessness. And there was a promise of 30% procurement. We would like to see and ensure that this House legislates that if people don't follow such rules, they are supposed to be brought to books. Honorable Speaker, the issue of CRB is an issue that has affected many young people. We have had more than 19 million Kenyans having been listed as not creditworthy. I'm happy with the presidential direction. It is the step in the right direction. We are hoping to improve on that and ensure we give legislation where CRB will be ranking our people instead of blacklisting them. We are hoping also Uwezo Fund, Youth Fund, Women Fund, and the Hustlers Fund will be digitized so that these monies get to the most remote areas of this country, those that cannot reach even the towns of our constituencies or our counties. Honorable Speaker, His Excellency the President spoke a lot on the issue of agriculture. I myself, from Manyata constituency, come from a very agricultural area, an area where we farm a lot of coffee, tea, horticulture, and maize. I'm very happy with the issue of fertilizer. And I would like to say that, Honorable Speaker, the fertilizer is reaching in Manyata constituency, but there is a need, as my fellow members have said, to improve and ensure that we have more and more people getting the fertilizer. But that being said, we also want to ensure that we provide seedlings and good seedlings to our farmers so that we don't give them fertilizer, but then they are left with a loss of 3,500 shillings per bag because they don't have good seeds. So I appeal to the government to ensure that the fertilizer gets to our people, but also good seedlings so that we can be able to farm. And Honorable Speaker, we need to feed ourselves as a country. We are not able to feed ourselves. And Honorable Speaker, from what I can see from our neighbors in Uganda, we might be attacked. So we should be ready in case such thing happen, so that we don't get our eggs from Uganda, our maize from Tanzania, and all those things that we get from our other countries. Kenya has enough land. All we need is to improve on our agriculture and ensure that irrigation is done in those semi-arid areas. Honorable Speaker, the issue of corruption has been mentioned a few times. And I want to correct my fellow members who are saying the president did not touch on the issue of corruption. The fact that he's talked about empowerment of our institutions, he clearly and vehemently talked about corruption. Corruption has gotten where it is today in this country because most of our institutions that are supposed to handle it have not been able to handle it well. The increase of fund to the judiciary is a step in the right direction. And Honorable Speaker, if that happens, you'll see corruption cases being solved better. The autonomy of the police service is also important, and that, His Excellency the President has done very good. We need to empower institutions such as EACC so that the issue of corruption, and including this House, is supposed to be solved, and we are not supposed to be speaking about it, as one of the members said, every now and then. Honorable Speaker, if we do that, we will be able to protect the agenda or the plan that the President has given. And the only way we can have all these projects and these dreams coming true is if we solve the issue of corruption once and for all. Honorable Speaker, the issue of CDF is an issue that is very passionate to the people of Manyata. And I would like to say that CDF should not be understated on what it has done to our people. As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, we need to increase that fund. We need to have more money so that we can be able to ensure our people school well. Those that cannot be able to get school fees, we are giving them bursaries. Our schools, sometimes they are in very bad conditions. We need to ensure, Honorable Speaker, that we improve the standards of living. And Honorable Speaker, as I say that, we need to realize the future of education in this country lies in the day schools that were started by one Honorable Mwai Kibaki. The day schools of this country depend wholly on CDF. And I hope these members will fight for that fund so that it does not go anywhere. And I still don't understand why the law of 2013 is said to be illegal, but...
Member for Bumula.
Mike. Mr. Speaker, sir, my name is Wanami Wamboka from Bumula constituency. I will start by thanking God, my family, and the great people of Bumula for giving me an opportunity to serve. Mr. Speaker, I want to promise my people that I will serve them with dignity, honor, and total humility. I've been in this journey for quite some time, Mr. Speaker. I started this journey with the late Wamalwa Kijana as a defender of people's rights. I moved on with Musikari Kombo, and as you know, I'm a student of Moses Masika Wetangula, and finally, Eugene Wamalwa. That gives me enough experience to serve my people and to fulfill the dreams and aspirations of my people. I want to speak to the speech given by the President, and I want to start on a point, I think point number 14, where the President promised to lead an administration dedicated to the just and fair government of all Kenyans in order to deliver a Kenya for everyone. That's where I'll start, Honorable Speaker. I'm sure every Kenyan is aware that going into the election and after the election, the President got 50+1, which is about a third of Kenya. His competitor, Raila Amolo Odinga, got 50-1, which is about a third of Kenya, and the other Kenyans didn't vote. Mathematically speaking, Honorable Speaker, we have a government that is a minority government going by the votes delivered after the elections. I want to appeal to the President that he must impress all Kenyans by ensuring equal distribution of resources and positions in government, starting from the CS positions to PS, ambassadors, and all the senior positions in this government. Honorable Speaker, every Kenyan must feel part of this government. The President must navigate as much as he can to make us all feel Kenyans. I'm also aware about some naked truth that very many people would not like to talk about. We have a Kenya of 43 tribes, which has only had all the presidents from 2 regions of this country. I want to now address the Honorable President that there is some volcano brewing in this country that we want him to come and heal, or else it will erupt. I come from a region that has been neglected in terms of government projects, in terms of resource distribution. Honorable Speaker, I yearn for a day a Samburu will have a choice or can be president of this country. I yearn for a day a Kamba, a Luya, a Luo, a Turukana can get a chance to be president of this country. The day that happens, then we start talking. I know very many people will be uncomfortable with that, but that's the reality of the matter. We want a clear, fair distribution of resources. I said, Honorable Speaker, the region I come from is marginalized. We have very many projects that have been started that have stayed for so long without completion. In mind, Honorable Speaker, a road called Musikoma Mungatsi, which is now going to 10 years, a road that hardly costs 350 million shillings. It has taken 10 years and it is not complete. A road Mungatsi, Kimaeti, Luahaha, it's a nightmare. And yet it's supposed to offload heavy traffic from the northern corridor that feeds this country. A road called Misihu Brigadier, which has taken almost 10 years to completion. Honorable Speaker. A road from Dorofu that links Kakamega County and Bungoma County, Dorofu Musikoma, which has also taken all these years. Whereas we have seen new roads coming up, dual carriages, from Nairobi to Nyeri, for instance, started the other day, it's now into completion. We've seen a road on the outskirts of Nairobi, the bypass, dual carriage, which started the other day. As we speak, it's now into completion. Madam Speaker, it is incumbent on the President to ensure that an Ekesa, an Otieno, anybody sitting anywhere in this country starts feeling like a Kenyan. Because at this point, it's not necessary to be bringing presidential ballot papers to other parts of this country. And I'll be proposing maybe you only take them to the two regions, that is Central and Rift Valley. Honorable Speaker, my attention also goes to the economic situation of my region, which is largely agricultural. I've seen government interventions trying to address and heal the problems of the Majani people and the problems of the Kahawa people. I want to plead with the President and his government. Where I come from, which is a sugar belt, that Nzoia is collapsing, we need urgent measures to mitigate so that our farmers can continue earning a living. We need urgent interventions for Mumias Sugar. Madam Speaker, we plead the gold mining factory, same as a granite factory in Vihiga. My heart still bleeds, Madam Speaker, when I imagine how the mighty pan paper was sold and collapsed the economy and the imagination of the great people of Webuye. Very soon, we are going to revisit that affair, and Mr. Rai must be brought to book, brought to account, because there is no way we could have sold pan paper for less than $1 billion shillings, whereas pan paper has a property in the Mudaiga, in the outskirts of Nairobi, one property that costs 1.4 billion. Madam Speaker,
thank you, members. Sorry for that. Before I call the member for Kisii County, just want to confirm to members that you don't have to come and appeal to me in person right here, because in fact, once you do that, then I'd have to skip you, so that I don't create the impression that if you come here in person, then I will put you to skip the line. So I think just hold your horses and your turn will come. We have plenty of time till 8 p.m. Thank you. And now I call the member for Kisii County.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. First of all, allow me to pass warm regards from the people of Kisii and the top leadership of Honorable Paul Simbarati and Senator Richard Onyonka, who are members of this hallowed house. Let me also thank the Almighty Father for giving me and blessing me because it is a blessing. And also to congratulate you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and all the elected leaders in this hallowed house. I'm very delighted because we are sharing our experiences, the challenges that our people face, and they're fresh in my mind. During the campaigns, as I moved around the entire Kisii County, I noticed that our people face real challenges. When I visited most of our health facilities, Madam Speaker, I realized that patients still share beds, up to 3 patients in one bed. It's a mirage. I also realized that even the kind of food that the patients are served, when you want to slaughter a cattle, we have the inspectors who will always inspect that exercise. I wonder if health officers even do move around to even test the kind of food that is served to our patients. We can all agree that fruits are essential, good food, so that to give them appetite. Unfortunately, when I moved around, the kind of food that was served, I can tell you, Madam Speaker, it is pathetic. Also, there are cases that are looked down upon. For example, if you are watching television and there's a rape case, most of us will always want to ask for a remote to move to watching to a different story. Why? Usually rape cases, you are treated as a suspect because you are told, why did you wear a short dress? Why did you walk out at night late? Why were you in the company of men? That is how we treat rape cases. It's worrying, Madam Speaker. I even watched news last night where there was a young girl who was raped to a point of she lost her life. Madam Speaker, as I proceed with the cases that I looked down upon, today I'm going to dedicate my maiden speech to the plight of the young girls out there. Rarely do we see the orphans get justice, the elderly, even the teen mothers. The rate at which teen pregnancy is rising is alarming. If I could go back to Kisii and maybe I project on how these cases of teen mothers come by. The fact that we've not stopped practicing FGM, you find that when these girls have been circumcised, initially at the age of our grandfathers, they could actually mutilate everything. It was total mutilation. As we progressed by, it has become partial. So our young girls will always know they've graduated from childhood to motherhood. So they will start practicing sex early, hence resulting to early mothers. These teen mothers will not even have courage to go back to their homes because the fear of being laughed at. They will end up in the streets as sex workers. I'm proceeding with the cases, Madam Speaker, that are looked down upon. The cases of GBV. If you went to a police station as a woman to report that maybe you had a fight and your husband beat you, you will be told that, Madam, you are lucky you've not died. I had a case of a woman who died last time. Police station don't solve love matters. Go home, have peace with your husband. That's how these cases, Madam Speaker, are looked down upon. As I proceed, with GBV, rape cases and teen mothers, you will even find that in our societies, even the political class, with the political class, religious leaders, even parents are not in support of this. As I stand here today, I pray that we will have laws. In fact, Madam Speaker, I want to sponsor a bill on teen pregnancy. If not, we revive on the already existing laws and put more strength on them so that we can once and for all deal with this issue, either having punitive measures or even having sensitizational programs, and then any other that can see that these problems are addressed dearly. Let me move now to the issue of good roads. In this era, Madam Speaker, we should not be talking of having a good network of roads, or we could not be even be debating on having water in our social places. Surely, to dignify the lives of our mothers, we should consider that in maybe we give 2 years coming, all our homes should have piped water, so that we relieve our mothers, even our school-going children, from trekking for long distances in search of water. Let me now move to the President's speech. Let me congratulate our President. The speech was good. On the issue of affordable fertilizer, I see it was a good move, though long term. Why do I mean long term? We had short-term measures that you could have taken, like lowering the prices of basic commodities like milk, cooking oil, and cooking flour, bearing the fact that our people, Madam Speaker, are wallowing in abject poverty. And on the issue of reducing, the President said he had instructed Treasury to work with the ministries to find savings of around 300 billion. In my view, he could also have thought on ways of sealing the revenue leakages. Lastly, let me make a plea to the members in this House. Attending to the President functions is not betraying your people who didn't vote for him, but a show of democracy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member for Kisii County. I now call Member for Tetu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to make my maiden speech on the floor of this House. First, I would like to start by congratulating His Excellency, the President, and his Deputy on their well-deserved victory. And secondly, to congratulate the Speaker and yourself, Madam Deputy Speaker, again for a successful election, and wish you Godspeed as you execute your mandate. Madam Speaker, allow me to start by thanking very sincerely the people of Tetu for bestowing their faith in me as their 8th Member of Parliament. Although my constituency now, I believe, holds the absurd or awkward record of never having re-elected any of its MP for the last 35 years, I believe, and I'm not blaming them, it's because we have an abundance of good leaders, which makes our local politics hyper-competitive. This is the constituency that produced Dedan Kimathi, the most celebrated freedom hero and Nobel laureate, Professor Wangari Maathai, who was also our 4th Member of Parliament. As such, Madam Speaker, I do not take this mandate lightly, and I would therefore like to promise on the floor of this House to the people of Tetu that I will execute my triple duties of legislation, oversight, and representation to the best of my knowledge and ability. Madam Speaker, my constituency is largely rural and agricultural. Our land holding is on average 1 acre. Madam Speaker, my people practice subsistence farming. We grow tea in the upper parts of Tetu neighboring the Aberdare forest, and we have coffee in the lower areas. We do small-scale dairy farming, and we have emerging crops such as macadamia and avocado. When I sought the mandate to represent the people of Tetu, I made certain pledges and promises to them. And when I listened to the President's speech in this House, I was very happy to note that most of the President's priorities neatly ticks into the boxes of the most pressing needs of my constituency. I'll start by agricultural productivity. Food insecurity is now a real threat in my constituency. This is because of climate change and also the high cost of inputs of agricultural products. And as such, the move by the President to lower the cost of the fertilizers has come as a welcome move. I'll, however, note that there is no NCPB, National Cereals and Produce Board depot in my constituency, and my people have to use upwards of 1,000 shillings to travel to Kiganjo, where we have the nearest NCPB depot. Also, the registration process to access this fertilizer is cumbersome, and it is important that going forward, we utilize some permanent database of farmers which can easily then be used to allocate the subsidized fertilizer to the farmers. For our cash crops, and in view of what the President said about using agriculture to improve incomes, I'm hoping that the motion on guaranteed minimum returns will see the light of day in this House. And I also intend to bring legislation to guide the processing and marketing of our emerging cash crops, that is macadamia and avocado, in the same way that we do for tea and coffee today. I call upon the government to support my people in agriculture, to support some of our ongoing irrigation projects, such as Kaigoji, Mutoigo, Huhoine, Hovoine, and others, to ensure that our people reduce their dependence on rain-fed agriculture. On education, Madam Speaker, the President has set up a committee to review the CBC system. This is very welcome. Last week, I actually had a chance to move around my constituency assessing CBC transition readiness, and I noted that there were more questions than answers. Still, there is no clarity as to whether the junior secondary will be domiciled in secondary schools or primary schools, and whether they will be boarders or day scholars. And as such, the request by the President in his speech that the CSs come to the floor of this House would offer us a very good opportunity to have such issues clarified. Madam Speaker, I have about 10,000 unemployed and underemployed youths in my constituency. While we are working hard to organize them into groups so that they can engage in viable economic activities, we eagerly wait for the Hustler Fund. So we hope that the 50 billion Hustler funds come quickly so that it can boost these groups as well as support our micro entrepreneurs. Madam Speaker, again, Tetu has a third distinction as a constituency without a bank or a petrol station. Nothing to blame is because we are very, very close to Nyeri town. But again, I would like to work with the national government institutions to ensure that we move more and more of our offices to Tetu so that they can be a catalyst for urban growth. Specifically, we welcome the President's move to increase the judiciary fund, and this gives us an opportunity to bring the first magistrates court to Tetu. On electricity, we hope to increase from the current 87% to 100% in the next 5 years. On our road network, Madam Speaker, we have the ongoing Mau Mau roads, which occasionally stall, and we are hoping that the President's speech, which said that he will prioritize ongoing projects, will be a welcome relief to ensure that these projects are completed. But specifically, Madam Speaker, I would like to draw your attention to the Ihithe-Donyujeru Road, which is supposed to link the counties of Nyeri and Nyandarua through Tetu and through the Aberdare Forest. This road, or the construction of this road, has been frustrated by some government agencies who have falsified environmental impact assessment reports sponsored by foreign conservationists. The people of Tetu have waited for this road for 19 years, and Madam Speaker, today I had a chance to mention this to His Excellency the President, and I was very glad to note that he is very well appraised and seized of the matter of this road and promised to help us seek a resolution at the soonest. To improve on availability of water, I would like the government to consider the proposed Mohoya Dam so that we have sufficient water for our people for both domestic and irrigation use. As such, as highlighted by the President in his speech, we welcome the use of public-private partnerships for water, and I would like to volunteer that Mohoya Dam can become a pilot project for this great initiative. We also welcome the alignment of CDF to the Constitution, and Madam Speaker, it's only fair to mention that this is causing anxiety among my people because they are not sure which way forward. As I conclude, Madam Speaker, I really look forward to making my mark and my contribution in this House as a great debater, informed contributor, and diligent committee member. And hopefully, I can break the one-term jinx in Tetu. God bless Tetu, God bless Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you, member for Tetu. I now call the member for Narok North.
Madam Speaker, for this opportunity that you have given me. And before I go on, I would like to congratulate the Speaker and you, the Deputy, for this opportunity that you have gotten to serve us in this House. And allow me to thank the people of Narok North for having elected me to come and represent them in this great House. And I want to promise them that I will represent them, and I will also make sure that I articulate issues that are affecting them. Madam Speaker, I want to tell you that it was not easy for me to be elected first woman in Narok as a member of parliament. I come from a constituency that holds on culture, conservative, that don't see women like they can be leaders. And especially having a history of vying for a position that was once held by the famous Honorable Olendimama. So when I was going on with my campaigns, they were all wondering how this woman will go and represent them without a rungu. I kept telling them I don't see rungus in parliament. And today I want to tell them that I am here and I've not seen any rungu. That means that this will give hope to our women. And then having a background of going through all the villages, telling our people not to practice female genital mutilation. I am on record, having even taken some of them to court, to make sure that I fight for the rights of our young girls. So when I was going on with my campaigns, they could all be talking of a woman who goes around carrying a model that shows all the parts of a woman and the effects of female genital mutilation. So nobody was sure that I was going to be elected. Even the political parties did not want to associate themselves with me. I happen to have come from a constituency that was an Azimio area. And whenever I go nearer to the Azimio leaders, they all didn't want to associate themselves with me. Sure. And I want to thank Jubilee, who came out and gave me a ticket, and now I'm here. And I want to say thank you to Jubilee. They considered giving me the ticket. My constituency has a lot of problems. At the moment, the roads are pathetic. And they are farmers. We bring all the food to Nairobi, but at the end of it all, that you find that it doesn't benefit the farmer. It benefits the middleman. And this is because of the roads that we have. We have no roads. We have no clean water. And when it comes to the hospitals that we have, they are also in a pathetic situation. And I doubt if we were right to have devolved health, because health is about people. And I don't think that the county governments have the capacity to run these hospitals. When you go there, there is no medicine, the dispensaries, no water, no electricity, there is nothing that goes on. So this is an issue that we, the members of this House, need to relook at and see if we really did any justice to our people, because women and children are suffering. Going to the speech, the presidential speech, it was brief, short, but articulate. It articulated issues that are affecting our people. When I listened to the issues, I remembered what I promised my people, because the promises I made were water, roads, and hospitals, good hospitals. And when I look at the speech, they were all there. So I want to say that as in this House, we need to look at areas that are really affected with these problems of not having good roads, hospitals. And that's why when we think of CDF, this is a fund that is really known by everybody, including children from where we come from. You find a woman asking you about CDF. Is CDF still on? Because this is the money that is used to pay the school fees for their children that are in school. And I want to say that we need to come out clearly and defend CDF and make sure that what is not there, we have put into action so that we can have these funds coming back to the people. If it is an oversight, I think we need to come out with the laws that will make this money come back to the people, because we seriously need these funds to come back to our constituency, because without these funds, we shall not be doing anything much to our communities, because we promised them a lot and we are ready to work for our people, but without these funds, I don't think members of parliament will be doing anything to change the lives of the people. We have our secondary schools congested. They need the dormitories. They need the dining halls. And you find that without these funds, we cannot still be able to give them a comfortable time in schools. When you come to education, our people still lag behind. And when we talk about girl child education,